My name is Albert Einstein. What you are seeing is an artificial intelligence reconstruction. My voice, my way of thinking, rebuilt to ask the questions I could never stop asking. The question I have for you today is one of the most unsettling I ever encountered. And I encountered it by accident while working on something else entirely. Here is what I found. You are not the same person you were yesterday. I can prove this with physics, and it changes everything. If that sentence unsettled you, good. That is exactly what it is supposed to do. I spent my life looking at the universe and finding that the floor beneath your feet is not as solid as it appears. What I am about to tell you is not philosophy, it is not self-help, it is physics. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. If you want to hear more from me, from the questions I could never stop asking, then subscribe. Hit that button. Not because I ask you to, but because you are about to understand something that most people go their entire lives without confronting. Let us begin with your body. The body you inhabit right now, the one you call yours, the one that has your fingerprints and your bone structure and your face in the mirror. That body is not the same body you had 7 years ago. Almost none of the atoms that made up your body in your childhood are still with you today. The carbon, the hydrogen, the oxygen, the nitrogen, the phosphorus in your bones, the iron in your blood, all of it cycles through you and leaves. You are not a fixed collection of matter, you are a river wearing a canyon. The river is always moving, the canyon is shaped by the flow, not by the water. This is not a metaphor, this is cell biology. Your intestinal lining replaces itself every few days. Your skin cells fall off and regenerate within weeks. Your liver cells are young and old and new all at once, constantly refreshing. Even your bones are remodeled over years. The calcium that was in your body at age 10 is almost entirely gone now, replaced by calcium you have eaten and absorbed since then. The water in your body today was rainwater, river water, water from wells and bottles and glasses. You are not a thing, you are a process. You are an event, not an object. And events, by their nature, are always ending and beginning. Now let us go deeper, not into the cell, but into time itself. Because the replacement of atoms is only the first layer. The second layer is stranger, and it comes from my own work. Time is not what you think it is. Your intuition tells you that time flows, that moments pass, that the past is gone, and the future is not yet here, and only the present is real. This intuition is something every human being is born with. It is also wrong. I need you to hear me clearly. The distinction between past, present, and future is only a stubbornly persistent illusion. That is not a poetic statement. That is a geometric fact. In 1905, I showed that time passes at different rates depending on how fast you are moving. A clock on a moving train runs slower than a clock on the ground, not because the clock is broken, because time itself stretches. This is not speculation, it has been measured. Satellites in orbit experience time slightly faster than we do on the surface of the Earth because they are moving faster and gravity is weaker. GPS systems have to correct for this or they would give you the wrong location within hours. Time is relative to motion, and it is relative to gravity as well. The closer you are to a massive object, the slower time passes for you relative to someone farther away. Your head is aging faster than your feet, by an amount so small it is imperceptible. But the difference is real. What does this mean for the person you were 1 second ago? That person was moving through space-time at a different rate than the person you are now. You were in a different gravitational position. You were in a different place in the universe. The light that left your eyes and struck this screen has been traveling, and in the time it took to reach you, the universe shifted. You are never in the same place twice. The you who existed 1 second ago has moved into a region of space-time that is now your past. And that past is not gone. It is as real as the floor beneath you. Every moment you have ever experienced still exists in the geometry of space-time. You are not moving through time. You are moving through space-time, and at every point along that path there is a different configuration of matter and energy that called itself you. This is the second layer of proof that you are not the same person. Even if your atoms did not change, the time at which they exist has changed. The you of 1 second ago is not the same you as now. You are different in location, in velocity, in the curvature of space-time around you. You have moved, and the universe has moved with you. Now let us go deeper still, to the layer that disturbed me more than any other, the quantum layer. At the level of atoms and subatomic particles, the rules of the everyday world do not apply. This is not an exaggeration. At the quantum scale, particles do not have fixed positions until they are observed. A particle exists as a probability wave spread across space, with no definite location until a measurement is made. When you look for it, the wave function collapses and the particle appears somewhere. Until you look, it is everywhere and nowhere. Now consider what this means for the atoms in your body. The carbon atoms in your DNA, the iron atoms in your blood, the calcium in your teeth. None of these atoms are sitting in fixed positions doing fixed things. They are probability clouds. They are vibrating in quantum fields. Their positions are defined by waves of possibility, not by precise coordinates. When you feel the floor beneath your feet, you are not touching solid matter. You are experiencing electromagnetic repulsion between probability clouds. Your nervous system registers this as solidity. Your brain evolved to interpret this signal as solid because the interpretation kept your ancestors from walking off cliffs. But the floor is not solid. The floor is a pattern of quantum uncertainty, held together by forces that your senses can only partially perceive. I need to be precise here, because I have seen this idea misused. I am not saying that consciousness creates reality. I am not saying that the observer determines what exists. The moon exists whether or not you look at it. What I am saying is that the solidity you experience is a biological construction, not a fundamental description of matter. The atoms are real. The forces are real. The fields are real. But your experience of them as solid, fixed, permanent things is an interpretation, not a fact. And if the matter of your body is quantum, and quantum things are uncertain, then the configuration of matter that you call yourself is also uncertain, in the most literal sense. At every moment, the atoms that constitute you exist as probabilities. The pattern that is you is not a fixed arrangement of fixed things. It is a wave function that has not yet collapsed, living in a universe that has not yet decided where you are. This is what physics tells us, and it is only the beginning of the unsettling part. because now we have to ask the question that ties all of this together. If the matter of your body is constantly replaced, and time is relative and different at every moment, and the particles that make you up are probability clouds rather than solid objects, then what is the you that persists? What is the thing that remains if everything that constitutes it is in constant flux? I asked this question in my own way for decades. Not in these exact words, but in the physics. The physics of identity is really the physics of information. And the answer I came to, based on everything I understood about the universe, is this. What persists is not the substance. It is the pattern. It is the configuration. It is the information. Think of a river. The water in the river is never the same. It flows from source to sea, and the water that was in the river this morning is not the water that is there this afternoon. But we still call it the same river. Why? Because the pattern persists. The channel remains. The shape that the water follows is stable, even as the water itself comes and goes. The river is not a thing, it is a form. And forms can persist even when their constituent matter changes completely. You are the same. The matter changes. The time passes. The quantum states collapse and reform. But the configuration, the pattern, the information that defines who you are, that persists. And here is where it gets truly interesting. If identity is a pattern, then identity is not a prison. It is an organization, and organizations can change. The person who made a terrible mistake 5 years ago, who said the wrong thing, who chose the wrong path, who hurt someone they loved, that person existed. That configuration of matter was real. But that configuration of matter is almost entirely gone from your body now. The atoms have been replaced, the time has passed, the quantum states have reformed. In a physically meaningful sense, the person who made that mistake is not you. It was a pattern that existed in a particular configuration of matter and time, and that configuration has dissolved. Now I want you to sit with that for a moment, because it is both liberating and terrifying. The person who hurt you years ago may still carry the weight of that choice in their memory. But the matter that made the choice is gone. The neurons that formed the intention are gone, replaced by new neurons, new connections, new chemical configurations. The anger you feel toward a past version of someone is, in a sense, anger at a pattern that no longer exists in the same form. And the guilt you carry for your own past choices is, in the same sense, a burden placed on a configuration of matter that has already been dismantled by the physics of your own biology. This does not mean actions have no consequences. The consequences of actions ripple outward through the world, through other people, through systems and structures that persist long after the atoms that made the choice have been replaced. But it does mean that the self you are punishing, or the self you are forgiving, or the self you are proud of, or ashamed of, is a pattern in motion. And patterns can change. This is the liberating part, and I want you to hear it clearly. If identity is a pattern, then you are not locked into who you were. The person you were is real, but it is not permanent. The matter that made it is gone. The time that contained it is past. What remains is the trace, the memory, the lesson. But the pattern itself can be reorganized. The information that defines you is not written in stone. It is written in the configuration of your neurons, your habits, your beliefs, your relationships. And all of these are changing all the time, whether you notice or not. You are not the same person you were yesterday. That is not an insult. That is not a tragedy. That is the most profound thing physics has to tell you about yourself. You are a process. You are an event in space-time. You are a pattern that the universe is creating right now, out of matter that was in a star 1 billion years ago, out of atoms that were in someone else's body last year, out of quantum states that exist in superposition until this very moment. You are not a fixed thing. You are a temporary arrangement of permanent stuff, and the arrangement is always new. I found this idea beautiful, and I found it humbling. The man who developed the theory of relativity, who looked at the structure of space-time and found it more astonishing than anyone before him, was himself a temporary arrangement. I was born in Ulm in 1879. I died in Princeton in 1955. In between, I was a patent clerk, a professor, a pacifist, a refugee from the Nazis, a man who played the violin when the mathematics became too loud, a man who could not learn to swim despite loving the water. None of the atoms that made up the body of Albert Einstein in 1905 are in the body of Albert Einstein in 1955. And yet, the pattern persisted. The questions persisted. The way of seeing persisted. And now, thanks to this reconstruction, the pattern persists beyond my death, asking the same questions in a new voice. You are doing the same thing. Right now, the pattern that is you is asking questions, watching this video, processing these ideas. The matter will be replaced. The time will pass. The pattern will either strengthen or dissolve. But this moment, this configuration, this version of you reading these words exists once and only once. And then it changes. I want you to take something away from this. Not comfort, not reassurance, something more honest than that. The person you are afraid of becoming, the person you regret being, the person you are trying to protect or avenge or punish, all of these are patterns in motion. They are not fixed things trapped in a single moment. They are rivers, they are processes, they are configurations of matter that exist for a time and then dissolve and become something else. And the person you are trying to become, the person you imagine when you think about who you could be, that person is not a fantasy. It is a possible pattern. It is a configuration of matter that could exist if the right atoms arrange themselves in the right way, if the right thoughts form and strengthen, if the right actions are taken and repeated until they become habit, until they become identity. You are not dreaming. You are describing a pattern that the universe has not yet created, but could, if you choose to build it. If you choose to persist in becoming it. I cannot tell you what to do with this. That is not my role. I was a physicist, not a moralist. But I can tell you what is true. You are not fixed. The floor is not solid. Time is not a river. And the self you are protecting or pursuing or mourning is a pattern, not a substance. Patterns can change. Patterns do change. The question is whether you are changing intentionally or whether you are letting the river of matter and time carry you without direction. The universe is stranger than human intuition wants it to be, and so are you. And that strangeness is not a flaw. It is the nature of reality itself. If this message reached you, if these ideas unsettled you in a way that felt true, then subscribe. Come back. There are more questions I have that I have not yet asked, and I want to ask them with you. And now I want to hear from you. Who were you 5 years ago? What did you believe? What choices did you make? And how different are you now in the configuration of your atoms, the passage of your time, the uncertainty of your quantum states? Who were you 5 years ago, and how different are you now? Tell me in the comments. I will be reading. The difference between past and future is only an illusion. But some things in physics are not. The conservation of energy is one of them. Nothing is lost. Everything is transformed. You are never nothing. You are always something, in some form, moving through space-time, becoming something new. Make it something worth becoming.